Good evening, my friends. Today I want to talk about something that confuses so many people in relationships. You give your love, your time, your energy to someone only for them to pull away. They shut down, they run, and just when you start to move on, bam, they resurface. Why does this happen? Why do avoidant people, those who fear deep emotional connection, secretly hope you'll return even after they've pushed you away? Let's break this down, because once you understand this pattern, you take back your power. Avoidance fear being consumed by love but crave connection when it's gone. This is the paradox that drives so many people crazy in relationships. When you love someone with an avoidant attachment style, it often feels like you're standing at the edge of a cliff. Taking a step forward means falling, but standing still means waiting in uncertainty. They desire intimacy, but the moment it starts to feel too close, too intense, they instinctively retreat. It's important to understand that this fear isn't a conscious choice. They don't wake up one morning and decide, I'm going to push this person away. It's wired deep into their psychology, often rooted in past experiences where closeness led to pain, loss, or suffocation. Maybe they had caregivers who were overly controlling, demanding, or inconsistent. Maybe they learned early on that emotions could be overwhelming and that the safest way to exist was to rely only on themselves. So what happens when they enter a relationship? In the beginning, everything feels exciting. They enjoy the attention, the connection, the rush of getting close. But the moment the relationship deepens, their subconscious mind kicks in. The closer they get, the more they feel like they're losing themselves. It's as if love threatens their independence, their identity, their very sense of self. They start thinking, what if I get hurt? What if this person expects too much from me? What if I lose my freedom? These thoughts trigger their defense mechanism, distance. And here's where things get tricky. When they pull away, they expect relief. They think that by creating space, they will feel safe again. But instead, something strange happens. They start missing you. The same connection that felt overwhelming now feels like a void. They wonder what you're doing, who you're with, and whether you've moved on. It's not that they don't care. It's not that they don't love. It's that love, for them, is a double-edged sword. One side offers warmth and security. The other side threatens their need for control. So they live in this internal battle, longing for closeness, but fearing it at the same time. This is why when you finally walk away, they start hoping you'll return. They crave connection, but only on their terms. They don't want to feel consumed, but they don't want to feel abandoned either. They want to know you're still there, even if they can't fully show up for you. It's a cycle that only breaks when one person decides to step out of it. An avoidant person needs space. It's their safety net. To them, closeness feels overwhelming, like a wave that could pull them under at any moment. They don't push people away because they don't care. They do it because deep down, emotional intimacy feels unpredictable, even dangerous. The moment they sense someone getting too close, their mind begins to rationalize why they need to step back. Maybe they tell themselves they need more time, more freedom, or that the relationship is moving too fast. Whatever the reasoning, the action is the same. They create distance. At first, this space feels like relief. The emotional intensity that made them uncomfortable starts to fade, and they regain their sense of control. They feel like they can breathe again, no longer burdened by the weight of someone else's expectations. But what they don't anticipate is what happens next. That distance, which once felt like a necessary escape, slowly begins to feel like something else, emptiness. It doesn't happen all at once. At first, they might enjoy the solitude, convincing themselves that this was the right decision. But then, in quiet moments when they're alone with their thoughts, something shifts. The text they used to receive from you doesn't come. The calls stop. The familiar presence they took for granted is no longer there. And suddenly, the silence that once felt like freedom begins to feel like isolation. They start wondering where you are, what you're doing, and if you're thinking about them. But reaching out feels risky. What if they look weak? What if it means admitting they need you more than they thought? Avoidants struggle with vulnerability, and acknowledging that they miss someone is one of the hardest things for them to do. So instead, they watch from a distance, waiting, hoping that you'll come back on your own. This internal conflict is what keeps them trapped in a cycle. They want closeness, but they don't want to feel suffocated. They need space, but too much space makes them realize how much they need connection. It's not that they don't want love, they just want it on their own terms. in a way that doesn't make them feel like they're losing themselves. And that's why when the person they once pushed away truly disappears, they begin to feel the loss in a way they never expected. The push-pull cycle is something that defines many relationships with avoidant individuals. And if you've ever been caught in it, you know how exhausting it can be. It starts with attraction. Things feel exciting, fresh, and full of possibility. They engage with you, they show interest, they make you feel special. But just when you begin to believe the connection is deepening, they start to withdraw. Suddenly they're less responsive, they take longer to reply, they become distant. You sense the shift and instinctively you try to pull them back. Maybe you reach out more, ask them what's wrong, or try to reassure them. But the more you try to bring them closer, the further they retreat. This isn't a calculated move, it's an emotional reflex. Avoidants feel safest when they are in control of the level of intimacy in a relationship. When they sense someone pulling them in too deeply, their instincts tell them to back away. However, here's where the paradox comes in. When you finally give up, when you stop chasing, something changes. They start feeling the space, and rather than feeling relieved, they begin to feel your absence in a way they didn't expect. At first, it's subtle. They might check your social media, wonder why you haven't reached out, or even convince themselves that they don't care. But as time passes, that distance they once created starts to feel uncomfortable. They've spent so much energy maintaining a sense of control, but now they are faced with the possibility that you might not be there anymore. This is why they often come back, sometimes with little explanation. They might send a casual message, test the waters, or act as if nothing happened. To them, reestablishing the connection brings comfort because it confirms that they haven't truly lost you. But here's the kicker: once they feel safe again, the cycle starts all over. They return just enough to keep the connection alive, but the moment things start feeling too close again, they pull away. Breaking this cycle isn't about figuring out how to keep them from leaving. It's about recognizing that the pattern itself is the problem. The avoidant person isn't necessarily trying to hurt you, but their behavior is rooted in their deep fear of intimacy. If left unchecked, this pull-pull dynamic can continue indefinitely, leaving you feeling emotionally drained and constantly questioning where you stand. The only way to truly change the cycle is to step outside of it and refuse to play the game. Your absence is more powerful than your presence when dealing with an avoidant person. When you are always available, always reaching out, and always trying to keep the connection alive, they never truly feel the weight of what it means to lose you. They assume you'll always be there, always waiting, always ready to reconnect whenever they decide to come back. And because of this, they never have to face the reality of what life looks like without you in it. Avoidants are wired to crave distance when things get too close, but what they don't anticipate is how that distance will actually feel once it's real. At first, it feels like a relief to them. They get the space they thought they needed, the emotional breathing room they've been craving. They feel like they are back in control, but something changes over time. They start noticing the silence, the absence of your texts, your calls, your presence. And the very thing they thought would bring them comfort distance begins to feel like a void. They start to wonder what happened. Why haven't you reached out? Are you moving on? Or have you found someone else? Their mind begins to play tricks on them, making them feel uneasy in a way they never expected. See, when they were the ones pulling away, they had the power, but when you finally stop chasing, when you stop responding to their push-pull cycle, that power dynamic shifts. Now they are the ones who feel out of control, uncertain, even abandoned. This is when an avoidant often starts to rethink things. They may not openly admit that they miss you, but their actions will show it. They might start reaching out in small ways, sending random messages, checking your social media, or even reminiscing about the past. But here's the truth: what they truly miss isn't just you. It's the validation, the safety of knowing that you were always there. Your presence made them feel wanted, desired, and cared for, even when they pushed you away. And when that presence is gone, it forces them to confront something they've been avoiding their entire lives: the fear of true loss. For the first time, they feel what it's like to be on the other side of distance, and it shakes them. That's why your absence is more powerful than anything you could ever say or do. It forces them to feel something they've spent their whole life trying to escape. Love should be mutual, not a chase, but when you're involved with an avoidant person, it rarely feels that way. Instead, it often feels like an uphill battle where you're constantly trying to prove your worth, show your love, and convince them to stay. You find yourself analyzing every interaction, wondering if you're being too much or not enough, carefully navigating their moods and responses, hoping that one day they'll finally let their walls down. But here's the truth: real love isn't about proving yourself to someone who resists closeness. It's not about chasing someone who keeps running. Love is about two people who choose each other, who meet each other halfway, who are willing to grow together. If you have to constantly fight for someone's attention, affection, or commitment, then you're not in a partnership, you're in a cycle of emotional exhaustion. Avoidants often don't realize what they have until it's slipping away. As long as you're available, as long as you're trying, they feel secure in knowing that they don't have to fully show up. They assume you'll always be there, waiting for the day they decide to let you in. But when you step into your power, when you stop chasing and start valuing yourself, everything changes. Suddenly, they feel the loss of something they never fully appreciated. They start to realize that love isn't something to be taken for granted. That connection isn't something to fear, but to nurture. And the irony is, this is often the moment they begin to want you back. Because now you're no longer someone they can push and pull at will. Now, you're someone who understands your worth, someone who refuses to settle for one-sided effort. They start to see you differently, not as someone who is always there, but as someone who could truly be gone. And that scares them more than intimacy ever did. The real question isn't whether they will come back, it's whether you'll still want them when they do. Because the moment you recognize that love should be effortless in its intention, that it should be freely given and reciprocated, you stop waiting for someone to realize your value. You start attracting people who already see it. And that's when you move from chasing love to choosing love. Because in the end, the most powerful decision you can ever make is to walk away from anyone who makes you feel like you have to earn what should be freely given. Understanding the avoidant mindset is the key to breaking free from the emotional roller coaster they create. These individuals are not heartless or incapable of love. They simply have a complicated relationship with intimacy. Their fear of being consumed by love leads them to push away the very thing they secretly desire. They crave connection, but on their own terms, in a way that doesn't make them feel vulnerable. The problem is that love doesn't work that way. Real relationships require openness, trust, and mutual effort. And when one person is always running while the other is always chasing, the foundation becomes unstable. The cycle of avoidance thrives on the illusion of control. Avoidants believe that by creating distance, they are protecting themselves from pain or suffocation. But what they don't realize is that the more they distance themselves, the more they feel the absence of what they once had. They assume that you will always be there, always waiting, always ready to pick up where things left off. But when you step back, when you truly stop chasing, something shifts inside them. The silence they once craved now feels like emptiness. The space they once needed now feels like loss. It is in your absence that they begin to feel the weight of their choices. This is why so many avoidants come back, often in subtle ways, testing the waters to see if you're still there. But what they're looking for is not just you, it's the reassurance that they haven't lost control. And this is where your power lies, because the moment you recognize that love should be mutual, that it should never feel like a battle for attention or worth, you begin to shift the dynamic. You stop being the person who waits. You stop being the person who bends. Instead, you become the person who stands firm in your value, knowing that true love never requires you to convince someone to stay. The real question isn't whether they will return, it's whether you will still want them when they do. Because by the time they realize what they lost, you may have already moved on to something healthier, something more fulfilling, something that doesn't leave you questioning your worth. Love is not meant to be a guessing game. It's not meant to be a cycle of distance and return, push and pull. It's meant to be a choice, one that both people make freely and wholeheartedly. So if you find yourself constantly waiting for an avoidant to realize what you're worth, ask yourself, do you really want to be with someone who only values you when you're gone? Or do you want to be with someone who sees your worth from the very beginning? The answer to that question will determine whether you keep waiting or whether you finally choose yourself. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope this message gave you clarity and strength to see your worth in relationships. Remember, love should never feel like a chase. It should feel like a choice made by both people equally. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and comment your thoughts below. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on empowering content like this. Your support helps us grow and continue spreading messages that transform lives. Stay strong, stay confident, and most importantly, choose yourself. Until next time, take care and keep moving forward.